TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, tensions across the West Bank are seemingly on the rise, with sporadic terror attacks and clashes reported in multiple locations. The supreme leader of the Islamic Republic, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, criticized Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif after the latter, in a leaked 3-hour and 10-minute audio recording obtained by TV7, complained over the Islamic Revolutionary Guard's influence over Tehran's foreign policy. Efforts to revive the 2015 nuclear agreement with Iran are reportedly progressing, slowly but certainly. Tensions across the West Bank are seemingly on the rise, with sporadic terror attacks and clashes reported in multiple locations. While violent clashes were reported in a number of friction points adjacent to Palestinian towns and villages, including most notably in the village of Beita, which is situated south of Nablus, a stabbing attack was reportedly thwarted early on Sunday when a 60-year-old Palestinian woman with a knife in hand attempted to stab IDF troops at the main Gush Etzion junction south of Bethlehem. The incident, captured on a security camera, purported to show the troops calling on the assailant to drop her knife before one of the soldiers, in accordance with rules of engagement, opened fire, neutralizing the Palestinian woman. And while thankfully no injuries were reported among the IDF troops, the woman sustained mortal injuries. Subsequently, at approximately 6 p.m. yesterday evening, a drive-by shooting was reported at the Tapuach junction south of the West Bank city of Nablus. According to an initial investigation conducted by the IDF, a vehicle carrying a Palestinian license plate arrived at the referred-to junction, where 3 Israeli youths, identified as 19-year-old seminary students, were standing at a hitchhiking stop. According to eyewitness accounts and based on security camera footage, the suspected vehicle pulled up next to the Israeli youths, after which the terrorists opened fire toward them, critically injuring 2 of the youth, while the 3rd Israeli sustained light injuries. Subsequently, the assailant managed to flee the scene, and the IDF is currently engaged in a manhunt, as part of which it has set up roadblocks throughout the area in an extensive effort to bring the terrorists to justice. Meanwhile, security officials have voiced their concern over what may be perceived as a so-called successful terror attack, which may consequently inspire others to try to emulate it. Therefore, the IDF announced that it has deployed an additional combat battalion to the West Bank sector of operations, as well as an elite counter-terror unit. It is also worth mentioning that the concern about the tense situation potentially escalating derives from Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas's decision to postpone the parliamentary elections for the Palestinian Authority last Friday, which triggered the Islamist Hamas organization in the Gaza Strip to try and fan the flames in territories under control of their Fatah rivals in the West Bank.
وبالتالي نحن نحمل رئيس السلطة وحركة فتح هذا القرار المجحف بحق شعبنا، الذي صادر حقوق شعبنا والذي صادر إرادة شعبنا الفلسطيني. الجماهير الفلسطينية التي خرجت اليوم في شمال قطاع غزة وفي مختلف مناطق قطاع غزة خرجت لتؤكد على شرعيتها وعلى رفضها لقرار رئيس السلطة بمصادرة هذه الإرادة وهذه الحقوق التي نزعها رئيس السلطة من أبناء شعبنا الفلسطيني.
Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, Arab residents of the eastern part of the city have voiced mixed reactions over the Palestinian leadership's decision to postpone the elections, citing Israeli refusal to allow for Palestinian elections to be held in Jerusalem as the primary reason.
كان لازم تمشي الانتخابات لأنه لا يجوز من أي ناحية قانونية ولا شرعية أنه يتم نفس الأشخاص لمدة 15 أو 20 سنة.
يعني أكيد ما هي القدس جزء من الوطن وهي العاصمة للوطن، يعني إذا فيش انتخابات في العاصمة يعني شو الفائدة من كل الانتخابات؟
Turning to Iran, where the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, criticized Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif after the latter, in a leaked 3-hour and 10-minute audio recording obtained by TV7, complained over the Islamic Revolutionary Guard's influence over Tehran's foreign policy. In what intelligence officials insist to be a cooked-up ploy by the Iranian top diplomat to gain Western sympathies, Minister Zarif is heard criticizing the IRGC as well as former Quds Force commander, the slain Qasem Soleimani, for its seniority in Tehran's foreign affairs decision-making, claiming that the negotiations with world powers prior to the 2015 nuclear deal were in fact on behalf of a broader military-oriented strategy, emphasizing, quote, "The structure of our foreign ministry is mostly security-oriented." Consequently, in remarks made by the Islamic Republic's supreme leader, aired on regime-run television yesterday, Khamenei, while not criticizing Zarif directly, emphasized that nowhere in the world does a foreign ministry determine the affairs of a country. Rather, it is determined by governmental bodies at a higher level than the foreign ministry, including the Supreme National Security Council. Responding to his supreme leader, Minister Zarif published an apology on his Instagram account, writing, quote, "I'm very sorry that some personal views, which were expressed only for the honest transfer of experiences and without any intention to publish, were secretly published and selectively exploited and used as a source of hostility by the ill-wishers of the country, the people, and the revolution." On the same topic of the recording, among the numerous issues discussed, the Iranian top diplomat also raised his unique relationship with former U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, including the American top diplomat's geostrategic outlook that included using actors such as Russia and France against Iran. Furthermore, Zarif mentions a unique encounter in which Kerry, who currently serves the Biden administration as its top envoy for climate, had informed him that Israel had attacked Iranian targets in Syria at least 200 times. When asked about the referred to assertion at a State Department briefing last week, spokesperson Ned Price sought to diminish the severity of Kerry's purported remarks.
This is purportedly leaked material, can't speak to the authenticity, can't speak to the accuracy of it, can't speak to any motives that may be behind its dissemination. I would just make the broad point that if you go back and look at press reporting from the time, this certainly was not secret, and governments that were involved were speaking to this publicly on the record.
In response to the purported claims heard in the recording, the former Secretary of State published a statement of his own on his Twitter account, writing, quote, "These allegations are unequivocally false. This never happened, either when I was Secretary of State or since." Turning to the Austrian capital, Vienna, where efforts to revive the 2015 nuclear agreement with Iran are reportedly progressing. Following last week's round of negotiations, Tehran's representative to the talks, Abbas Araghchi, provided the regime-controlled Press TV an update on the Islamic Republic's perspective on the latest developments.
We have been able to make a much better understanding on the issues of difference. On both sides, on both questions of difference and areas that we have a common position, I think now we have a better understanding, and the discussion is now more matured, and we have already started to draft. Now we have some texts available to us based on the negotiations we have already made, and now we are working on the words and phrases and sentences and paragraphs. That is not an easy job. It's very time-consuming job. So this is why we have now that the progress is actually slow, which is quite natural to me.
The Ayatollah regime's chief negotiator further underscored the importance of lifting U.S. sanctions, which Iran regards as its top priority. He went on to unveil that Tehran's demand to address all sanctions is being deliberated, regardless of whether they are nuclear-related or imposed for other reasons, such as human rights and terrorism.
Well, on the details of negotiations, of course, sanctions are a very, serious question, and actually the most important question for us. We have already entered into the different aspects of that. It's a very complicated issue, and as you know, sanctions have different categories, and we have to deal with all of them.
Thank you for watching us. As part of TV7 Israel's prayer initiative, I would like to encourage you today to join myself and the team here in Jerusalem to lift up Singapore in prayer for its salvation and peace, alongside prayers for our persecuted brothers and sisters around the world, in addition to our ongoing prayers, of course, for the peace of Jerusalem and the salvation of Israel, and for all those who are impacted by the numerous ramifications of the corona crisis worldwide. Separately, I would like to thank all of you who partner with TV7 Israel. Your monthly support by means of prayer, words of encouragement, and finance is of vital importance for our ongoing operations. I'm Jonathan Hassan, wishing you an Erev Tov Shavua Tov, and we will see you again tomorrow at the same time.